is going on, guys? Welcome to the Only Football Podcast. My name is Kyle, and today we're going to be discussing some of the latest news, including Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs had a little visit today at the White House. We know that it's a time tradition where the winner of the Super Bowl will get the Lombardi Trophy handed to them by the president. And today was the day that happened. In other news, you may notice that the background that I have here is a little bit different. It's because I'm in Phoenix Field. This is the Arizona Cardinals background that I'm using today because we're going to be discussing DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins is just, it's amazing what being around a bad quarterback can do as far as diminishing your career in such a fast pace. I mean, we're talking about a guy that a couple years ago was unquestionably the best wide receiver in the league. And, since then, we've had some other receivers come into the league. We've had Jamar Chase come in, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. There's a lot of young talent kind of arising, and DeAndre Hopkins is, let's just say his stock isn't at an all-time high. So who is going to be, and I knew my microphone wasn't, there we go. So who is going to be the guy that goes out and makes a move for DeAndre Hopkins? And for a long time, I believe Dallas was that team. Yeah, they have CeeDee Lamb, but if CeeDee Lamb goes down, God forbid something happens to him, they are not that deep at the wide receiver position, which made me believe that, and especially Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones and his personality. He likes the big personalities. He likes to make the splash moves. He likes to flex his billions of dollars and sign people like that. So when you think about some of the other teams, because he did put out a wish list of teams he wanted to play for, well, to shorten the list, basically every team he wants to play for is the teams with the best quarterbacks, with the exception of Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. Every other team that you could think of was on that list. But when you think about those other teams, is there a need at wide receiver? I mean, you look at Kansas City, who was on the list, and you think, well, Kansas City just coming off of a Super Bowl, and they just did it without having really any receivers that jump off the screen. Okay, and then you look at Philly. Okay, well, Philly, they got their receiver, pretty stacked right now with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. You look at Baltimore, who arguably have the deepest receiving group that they've ever had, with the signing of Odell and the draft pick that they spent. So I'm trying to think here, and all of a sudden Dallas, right? You think Dallas, and you're like, look, it was a team that almost made it to the NFC Championship, and they have a need at the receiver. Like, you think of the Bengals. There's a reason he left the Bengals off the list, and it's not because he doesn't want to play with Joe Burrow. It's because he knows, with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, that he's not going to get a lot of touches. It's too many mouths to feed, right? So you got to think, we need a team that has some real upside to them, but still gives him the opportunity to be heavily involved in the passing game. So when I think about that, I thought Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry Jones was asked about that. And it's not like somebody went out of their way to ask Jerry Jones specifically. Every head coach has had to answer DeAndre Hopkins' questions since he was released. And this is what Jerry Jones had to say when the agents or press, asked him about how likely it was for DeAndre Hopkins to become a Cowboy. As soon as DeAndre Hopkins hit the floor, the Cowboys were instantly added to the list of teams whom Hopkins could sign. It's Dallas, home to a team that never shies away from kicking the tires on another weapon. especially on the heels of a season in which a lack of pass catchers prompted them to court Odell Beckham Jr. and eventually acquire Brandon Cooks. But Hopkins might not be as much of a guarantee addition. Owner Jerry Jones told reporters Monday that while the Cowboys don't dismiss any possibility, it is unlikely that Dallas will sign Hopkins. So I actually watched this press conference because, voice inflection, body language tells a lot of the story. It took him a while. I'm going to just say this too. Jerry Jones is getting really old, and it was actually pretty sad because I couldn't tell if he was thinking really hard or if he's just getting to an age where it's hard for him to communicate. But it kind of gave the illusion that he was thinking really hard about it, therefore kind of putting more meaning in what he was saying. Like if somebody answers a question immediately, you know, you might be able to change their mind. But if somebody takes 10 seconds, really thinks about it, and then tells you an answer, that's a harder person to convince otherwise. And it might just be that he was old, but if he was thinking about it and taking his time because he wanted to give a proper answer, he basically said, I wouldn't rule anything out. As a standard law, everything is always going to be an option. But are we going to make a move for DeAndre Hopkins? No. If for some reason he's willing to, it's just never say never. It is the opposite of what a team that is getting ready to pursue a guy like DeAndre Hopkins would say. DeAndre Hopkins does require, the PR and the media. You got to say the right things. You got to say something so that agents start talking. I mean, he basically, if I'm the agent for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not even going to call that phone anymore because it's clear that Dallas believes that they've solved their answers at wide receiver by acquiring Brandon Cooks. And look, I don't think that Brandon Cooks is who the Cowboys think they have, but I may be wrong. But I haven't seen. I mean, look, Brandon Cooks and DeAndre Hopkins are just two completely different levels. And to think that Dak Prescott, at a point in his career where we know that he is not elite, he may be good and he may be worth starting in the NFL. But so is Tony Romo. Okay. Is Tony Romo elite? He wasn't elite. He had moments, and Dak Prescott is the same way. He has moments. He is not an elite talent. He's not a top 5 quarterback in the league. He's probably not a top 10 quarterback in the league. Although there's some people that may disagree, I don't think so. So when you don't have a top 10 wide or quarterback in the league, I do think it is valuable to get as much help as you can to make your quarterback look better. Those elite receivers, the Jamar Chases, the Devontae Adams, even A.J. Brown last year. Great wide Tyreek Hill. Look what he did for Tua last year while he was healthy. I mean, great wide receivers will make your quarterback look better. And it's because they get open, they get separation. It's an easier throw. I don't think the Cowboys understand Brandon Cooks is not an elite receiver. So you can't address the solution to the problem the Cowboys have. I don't believe was met. I believe, if anything, it was a Band-Aid solution. And look, this might be 2 years and the Cowboys are just back in the same situation where, I mean, imagine they do get DeAndre Hopkins signed on a 4-year deal and the Cowboys do get that extra boost offensively to, make a run for the Super Bowl. DeAndre Hopkins is still going to be on that team. He's still going to be good next year, the year after that. I mean, that could have been a good place for him to end his career. He started in Texas. Maybe he ends it in Texas. For a lot of reasons, I feel like that deal made a lot of sense. And if they wouldn't have paid Brandon Cooks, I do believe that they would have had the money to pay DeAndre Hopkins. And because I know how much Jerry Jones loves to spend when it comes to getting these type of receivers, I don't believe that this is just the Cowboys aren't interested in DeAndre Hopkins. And that is why right now I'm going to look up the Dallas Cowboys salary cap to see where they're at right now. And the Dallas Cowboys right now are total cap liabilities, total team cap space, 20 million. So, I mean, if you're thinking about the long picture, yeah, I think that they could have worked out a deal with DeAndre Hopkins. However, Brandon Cooks was given 6 million. I think you would have had to give him at least Odell Beckham money, which is 18 million, I believe. So you take away that 6. I mean, you get what you pay for here. Like, you paid 6 million for Brandon Cooks, and you're going to get 1/3 of the impact, in my opinion. This is 1/3 of the impact. But look, Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb, their contracts together don't even equal $10 million. They're both being paid. CeeDee Lamb's making about $4,457,000, while Micah Parsons is making $4,658,000. Trevon Diggs is getting $4,843,000. So I don't know. And then you got guys like all these guys that haven't been paid. You got Mozzie Smith that's got $2 million. When you look at who they actually have paid, it's Dak Prescott, $26 million. Okay. That's the cap number. DeMarcus Lawrence, $17 million. Zach Martin, 11. They paid Stephon Gilmore at corner. That's $10.9 million. Tony Pollard is at $10 million. I think when you're in a space of time where you haven't had to pay all of your rookies, that is when you're in the window. So usually, if you've noticed this, teams that win the Super Bowl have done one or two things. They haven't paid their quarterback yet, which means they got an elite quarterback that came in and made an immediate impact on its franchise because it was Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, I think Brock Purdy even, these Jalen Hurts last year. They haven't paid their quarterback, because the quarterback's the most expensive, right? So if you're not paying that guy, you're like, what do I do with all this extra money? Well, let's pay this guy, this guy, this guy. You get a supporting cast. We call that 4-year rookie contract the quarterback's on. If you have an elite quarterback, that's a Super Bowl window, okay? So you either have not paid your quarterback yet, or if you have paid your quarterback, then I would say, and this only happens if you draft extremely well, but let's say 3 years, you've accumulated, let's say, 7 like all pros in 3 years. Very rare. But let's just say you've been hitting the draft. We're about to get to the point where it's going to be time to pay CeeDee Lamb, and it's going to be time to pay Micah Parsons, which means if the Cowboys are in a non-quarterback window, but just a supporting cast window, that window's closing too, because next year it's all going to be different, right? They're not going to be able to pay everybody. So you could look at it one or two ways. You could say, why even bring DeAndre Hopkins in here if we're not going to be able to keep him? But the other way you could look at it is, why not bring DeAndre Hopkins in here on a 1-year, $18 million deal? I mean, are we trying to win a Super Bowl this year? If he's willing to sign a 1-year deal, then that is a deal that makes a lot of sense to me, because then you get him in. There's no ties once the season is over. And now your wide receivers is Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, and DeAndre Hopkins. And by the way, if you have CeeDee Lamb and DeAndre Hopkins all of a sudden Brandon Cooks becomes extremely valuable because you're not asking him to go out there and be a number 1 or a number 2 receiver. And the thing is teams are going to be deciding, do we double cover CeeDee Lamb? Do we double cover DeAndre Hopkins? They're going to be so focused on those 2 receivers that guess what? Now Brandon Cooks is getting a lot of looks, a lot of passes. He gets a lot of touches. Like, if you're going to have a guy that is a tier 3 wide receiver, do at least what you can to increase his value. And that is by putting, actual 2 number 1 receivers on the field at the same time. I'm not sure why Jerry Jones isn't as excited about this as I am. I think that the Cowboys are really wasting an opportunity. Dak Prescott is not going to go out there and all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, Brandon Cooks is amazing, right? There's too many head coaches, Super Bowl winning head coaches that have said next, right? I believe Sean McVay did with the Rams. We also had Bill Belichick. We also, there's 2 more. Let's look at them really quick because Brandon Cooks teams. Sean Payton did. That's 3. How many teams did? Okay, so the Saints. So Sean Payton decided not to pay him. Bill Belichick only had him for 1 year and was like, next. Then Sean McVay had him and said next. Then the Texans had him for the last 3 years. I'm not going to judge that too high. But why has he not found anyone that wants to pay him? Well, he hasn't been able to stay healthy for the most part. And we can see, let's just take that 1 year with the Patriots, for example, because I do remember that year. He had 700 yards, 57 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He played, let's see if it says games played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He played 16 games, it looks like. Let's see, receptions. He didn't go in all 16 games. He had at least 1 reception. He only had 1 reception on Monday, December 11th. This is 2019. And by the way, this year ended with the famous Super Bowl with the Philly special. So Brandon Cooks did not get a Super Bowl ring, but he came pretty close. But what's interesting, and it made me kind of pause here and really double take this, is that I've noticed on this that his worst game was a Monday Night Football game where they lost against Miami, and he only had 1 reception. And I'm looking at some of the other losses, like week 1 against Kansas City. Oh yeah, because Kansas City, they had that overtime game that was legendary. So they started the season with this game, I guess. But he only had 3 receptions, and the Patriots lost. They got their asses beat by Mahomes. And then he only had 3 receptions against Carolina, and they lost by 3. And there's only a couple games on here where he had less than 3 catches and ended up winning. So it does show some kind of value here, but I don't think, if you're looking at a number 1 receiver, this guy went the entire season with a season high of 6 catches in a game. 6 catches in a game. The 2017 Patriots, that's not good enough. You got to have more than 6 catches in a game. Like, you didn't have one game where you just went off. And then let's see about the season he had with the Rams in 2018. He played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games.
0 catches. I don't know if they're including his. I don't know if he didn't play this game or he just didn't do anything. But let's see. He had 10 catches, so that would be his career high. But besides that, 5 catches, 7 catches, 4 catches. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is a really good wide receiver 3. This is somebody that you would really enjoy having on your team. He will contribute, but I don't see any stats jumping off the screen. Now we're at 2020, 57 receptions, 700 yards. He can't get past that 700-yard mark. So he had 699 yards twice. That's crazy. Let's see with the Texans. Now I'm just looking for. Look, Brandon Cooks is just not. He's a 3 to 7 catches a game receiver. That's what the numbers say. Maybe, once in a while he'll be good, but maybe that's all the Cowboys are looking for is 3 to 7 catches. I think they're looking at this entirely wrong. And I think if you have an opportunity because I'm telling you, those games that Brandon Cooks had 10 catches, you would get a lot of those. I mean, could you imagine lining up against that team for a second? Hopkins on the left, CeeDee Lamb on the right, Brandon Cooks in the slot, along with their other receiver that they have. I'm trying to remember what his name is right now. It's Michael Gallup. With Michael Gallup, all of a sudden you got yourself a team. And even Dak Prescott can find those open receivers. But whatever. Jerry Jones says he's not interested. So that is why I did the Cardinals background today, just in the spirit of DeAndre Hopkins. There is a Madden cover reveal coming, and if you guys know me, you know that although I haven't bought a Madden game in multiple years, this video game was very crucial to my childhood, and it was a way that, as a person that loved the game, it was a place I could channel my inner head coach, and it was a place that I was able to fall in love with the actual strategy of the game and not just, oh, I'm watching it, but, learn what different defenses, how to read offenses. I remember I used to rush with Jamal Lewis with the Ravens a lot. ESPN 2K5 was the greatest professional football game, but, EA Sports had to buy that because they were shitting their pants. If EA Sports wouldn't have done that, I'm pretty sure that the 2K series would have been way superior at this point. If you've ever even watched, like on YouTube, a video of 2K5, there are still things in that 2K5 that EA Sports has yet to do, like a real halftime show with Chris Berman. They used to have the refs run up into that thing when they were challenging plays. I mean, it was pretty incredible. So now they're basically saying who is going to be the cover of the next Madden. And they brought it down to about 5 people. And I'm just going to say, I already know who it is. And I really do believe that almost every other option would be wrong. There's only one person that the new Madden could be. And it can't be Patrick Mahomes because we already did that. The Madden series. Bill's in the chat. What's going on, Bill? Happy to have you in here. The Madden series does rely on something new, right? So you can't use the same guy on the cover because you need people to walk past it and not feel like that is something they already have. You want it to have this kind of new feeling to it, okay? So who is and remember, when Mahomes was the new guy, he got to be the Madden cover right away. The NFL wasted no time on that. So who's the newest star in the NFL? Who's the guy that just got paid? Who's the guy that just had his team in the Super Bowl? The new Madden cover, I would bet almost anything that it's going to be Jalen Hurts. And look, they've also put Peyton Hillis on the cover when he played for Cleveland, and he was originally a Bronco. That's why I loved Peyton Hillis. He used to drive a truck, and he used to throw fat chaws in and dip in on the sideline. He was a fun, down to earth, simple guy. But how the hell did that guy get on the cover of Madden? Can we just take a second and ask ourselves that question? We have gotten to the point where the Madden curse isn't real. For a while, every year that you were on the cover of Madden, the following year you got injured, some sort of injury. So I'm going to, just for fun, go through the last 20 Madden covers. I'm just going to say their names because it is really, really funny. I actually wanted to mention, too, in 2009, they put Brett Favre on the cover. And Brett Favre was traded to the Jets 3 days after the release of the Madden. And this is 2009, so it wasn't easy to just digitally do things. And everybody was running around trying to figure out how the hell are we going to, digitally input him in a Jets uniform. But I'm going to start with the year 2000. John Madden was on the cover of Madden. And that only is just perfect, right? The 2000 Madden had Madden on it. But then 2001, they were like, you know what? We're going to do something different. We are going to put NFL players on the Madden cover, and not just John Madden. And this was the very first Madden I ever owned. I was 7 years old. It was Christmas, and my dad got us this gift. It was an Xbox, the original Xbox. And the game that was with it was this. Because I'm doing the green screen today, you can't see it, but it's Eddie George. He was the first to be on this cover. Then we got 2002, Dante Culpepper, the famous Minnesota Vikings quarterback. 2003, we had Marshall Faulk. The Greatest Show on Turf was long overdue for a Madden cover, and Faulk was the perfect poster man. And then we had 2004, Michael Vick. And Michael Vick was definitely the perfect guy because he was a star in the league at this time. Everybody wanted to be like Mike, like Michael Vick that played football. He was doing things that we just hadn't seen before. It said the QB boasted a 95 overall speed. The Madden developers were forced to introduce features to slow him down in the sequels that followed, because literally people would just take the ball and run it with Michael Vick because he was faster than everybody. Then 2005, we had Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was the introduction of the hit stick, where you can hit somebody extra hard and they're more likely to fumble. 2006, we had Donovan McNabb. 2007, we had Sean Alexander. 2008, we had Vince Young. You know what I wanted to? I'm going to say this because this is kind of cool. For as much as we hear about, especially with the Super Bowl this year, it's the first time two black quarterbacks have gone against each other in the Super Bowl. The Madden, every black quarterback that was successful made the Madden cover from the beginning. 2002, you have Dante Culpepper. 2004, you had Michael Vick. 2006, you had Donovan McNabb. 2008, you had Vince Young. So there was actually, contrary to the black quarterback thing, there wasn't actually a white quarterback on the Madden cover until Brett Favre in 2009. And he probably is not the guy, now that we know more about him, to put there, but that's just a little bit of irony here. Favre was actually retired from football when the game was announced, and that's probably why he made that cover. But then when he did come out of retirement, he got traded to the Jets, and this was the first time a non-active player made the cover. So this is the first time that somebody that was on the cover of Madden, you couldn't actually play with that person in the game because of how late Favre waited to come out of retirement. Then Madden 10, this one I was so excited for. I remember waiting outside GameStop at midnight for this one. Madden 10 was the first Madden that featured two players on the cover. It was Troy Polamalu, and he was getting ready to hit Larry Fitzgerald. And this was right after the epic Super Bowl between the Falcons and the Steelers. And if you guys remember that, Santonio Holmes with the crazy catch on the sideline, and the Steelers getting the win. It was one of the most fun Super Bowls I ever watched. 2011, you got some Drew Brees. 2012, here it is, Peyton Hillis. Peyton Hillis makes the cover. And then 2013, you got Megatron, one of the best receivers to ever lace up the cleats. Johnson won another fan vote to grace the cover, beating out 64 other NFL players. This is what the fans wanted. Then Madden NFL 25, Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson. Then Madden 2015. So this would be right after Marshawn Lynch decided not to run the ball, and they threw the interception against the Patriots. They put Richard Sherman on the cover. And 2016, they put your boy. There was a game. It was Sunday Night Football, and Eli Manning dropped back, and then he shuck off a guy, and then he launched the ball downfield, and then this player got in pass interference call, but he was still able to somehow lean his back and reach with just two fingers and catch a football with two fingers. And Odell Beckham Jr. was born, and he was the Madden cover right out of the gate. After that, we had never seen a catch like that in our entire life. And because of that, Beckham beat out Rob Gronkowski for that spot. Then 2017, Gronkowski gets his spot. And then 2018, TB12 gets on it. It's kind of wild that Brady wasn't on a Madden cover until 2017. I mean, I don't even know if wild's the right word. It's ludicrous. It's insane. And then Madden 19, probably the one that Madden wants back, Antonio Brown made the cover. And then Madden NFL 2020, Patrick Mahomes. 2021, after winning a unanimous MVP, he was the perfect quarterback for the Madden 21 cover, Lamar Jackson. And then, like I said, with Tom Brady last year or the year before, getting ready to retire, he made the cover with Patrick Mahomes. The NFL went back to the duo cover for the second time in history, and it was Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. And then last year, Madden 23 was none other than the man, rest in peace, John Madden. And Madden 24 will launch like it does every year in August. And we are getting really close to knowing who it's going to be on that cover. And I don't know who else it could be besides Jalen Hurts. So I just thought we could go down memory lane for a minute. And if it's not Jalen Hurts, then I feel like if it's not Jalen Hurts, because maybe they're trying to save Jalen Hurts for a Super Bowl winning year. Like, let's say the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year. Maybe they're saving it for that. Then I would go with Justin Jefferson. Okay. Justin Jefferson had an insane year. He's the reigning Offensive Player of the Year. He led the league in receptions and receiving yards in a season. His gritty celebration has, become a legendary thing. You got Mac Jones doing it, for crying out loud. So I do think that Justin Jefferson would be another good option, but I don't know if the NFL would take him over Jalen Hurts. And then Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers only because he's only 1 year removed from being a back-to-back MVP, but it would almost be kind of because of the thing that happened with Brett Favre being in a Packer jersey and then he became a Jet. It would be like the NFL is redeeming themselves to put Aaron Rodgers on the cover with a Jets jersey. It's, I'm sure that they would appreciate that they're not going to screw that up again. And Bill said Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, I think he's not there yet. We've only had one cornerback on the cover of Madden, and if you think about it, that was a team that had gone to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and almost went back to back. So I do think the Jets, like if the Jets win the Super Bowl or even make it deep into the playoffs, then I think he could be on the cover. But a lot of these covers for defensive guys, they've had to have some kind of success. They put Troy Polamalu on the cover, but he had won the Super Bowl the year before. I'm trying to see Ray Lewis, but they put him on the cover because of the 2000 Ravens. We already know what they were about. And was there any other defensive players? Wow, that's crazy. There's only Ray Lewis and Troy Polamalu. So I don't think you can just throw a rookie or he going into his first year, but he hasn't done enough in my opinion. The Sauce thing was a joke. Oh, no, I mean, I think that he could definitely become on a cover. I think Patrick Surtain could too. We have a lot of great Jalen Ramsey, I think could be on a cover. I think it would be cool to have a cornerback on the cover. So the Kelseys on a twofer wouldn't be bad. Wow, now that's actually a pretty cool idea. That would be cool. That'd be interesting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you play Madden, if you don't, it's a fun game. Then I wanted to go over just some of the news roundups, the latest signings and things like that. So the Arizona Cardinals signed 2 cornerbacks, Dalen Mabin and Bobby Price. Trying to see if there's anything. Leonard Floyd is signing a 1-year deal with the Bills. That's their linebacker. A lot of people thought maybe Buffalo would be using their money to go after DeAndre Hopkins. Instead, they closed on a deal with one of their own. That was reported today on NFL Network. The Cowboys signed Tyron Johnson, and they cut Antonio Callaway. The Broncos signed Nick Williams, and they cut Demaria Crockett. Let's see. The Cowboys signed a defensive tackle, Jacob Sykes, and the Steelers signed Darius Hagan and Jareer Williams. Like, every time I do this news roundup, I know that none of us know who these guys are. I'm like well aware of that, but I like to do it in case I mention their name and then all of a sudden, we see one of these players and it's like, oh, I remember when he was signed. Michael Vick, Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Suggs are among stars on College Football Hall of Fame ballot for the first time. Michael Vick and Terrell Suggs and Fitzgerald could be inducted into the Hall of Fame for the first time. National Football Foundation released a list of 78 players and 9 coaches from the major college football. And Bill said They both went to the show last year. Um, they both. What show are you talking about? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what I said. My brain's so scrambled. But while you let me know, on Good Morning they had Peter Schrager on, and Peter Schrager's becoming such a busy person. He's basically like an NFL insider at this point, and um, I always kind of wonder, I don't know why, but when a long weekend ends and it's Monday, I wonder what they did during the weekend. I just kind of wonder, like, because it's a life I would really like to get into, being an insider. So I always wonder how they spend their free time. Well, today I was watching Good Morning Football at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it said, coming up next, Peter Schrager tells a story. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm eating my eggs with hot sauce. And then he's like, I was in Kansas City this weekend. And I'm like, why was he in Kansas City this weekend? And he goes, you're probably wondering, why would I be in Kansas City on my day off? I felt like we were having a conversation. And he goes, I was at a charity event. It's called like the Kansas City Celebrity Softball Game. And this thing looked crazy. It looks so much fun. It's like they raise money for nurses and doctors in Kansas City. And it's just a bunch of people that get together, like Paul Rudd and um, Patrick Mahomes and, a lot of guys from the media. And they were going through the pictures, and it just looked like such a fun time. So I'm wondering if I would imagine it's a private event, but I wonder if the softball game is public, because that would be a lot of fun to go to. And then Bill got back to me. He said it was the Madden thing with the brothers going to the Super Bowl. Oh, that actually makes sense, because I was saying Sauce Gardner wasn't wasn't winning the Super Bowl or close to one last year. That's true, because if they were gonna do a duo, look at the one they did in the past. Palomalu and Fitzgerald both make it to the Super Bowl. I could see that. If they were gonna do the Kelsey duo, this would be the year to do it. I feel like you know something I don't. Because that's almost too good of an insight to ignore. Um, I don't know if you guys heard about Von Miller. I don't know where I heard it. I was trying to find it in my notes here. But Von Miller is expected to be starting week 1 um, for the season opener. That's what we call it. So that's really good news, man, because I really feel like Von Miller, lean back here. I feel like Von Miller still has like good football left in him. I know, the way things ended in Denver were kind of abrupt, and I don't think him and Vic Fangio got along great. But man, he did his first interview back in Denver. He was doing some kind of charity auction in Denver, and I was listening to his interview, and he still says "we" when referring to the Broncos. Like, he was like, "Oh no," he's like, "We got a great team," and he starts naming like Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, and he's like, "All we got to do is beat the Chiefs one time. All we got to do," like, and I was like, "Dude, this guy." And then he even said, like, when he retires, he would sign the contract with Denver. He wants to get his jersey retired in Denver. Like, I just want nothing but the best for Von Miller. He is such a good man. Um, he's just handles himself so well. He takes care of his body. He reminds me of, it's gonna sound crazy, but like a LeBron James. Like, is he the greatest ever? No, he's not. He's probably not the greatest ever. But when you're talking about all-time great pass rushers, is he going to be up there? Yeah, he's going to be considered in that conversation. And he's just like, to watch him be drafted and watch him, you know, get mentored by DeMarcus Ware, and watch him go from being a kid to a young leader and the young adult to being just an adult to getting into being a veteran. It's really been such a pleasure. And in a way, him getting injured last year, it's like, oh my gosh, that sucks. But at the same time, I know the way Von Miller treats his body and the way he prepares. And if anything, it's just less tread on the tires. I don't believe Von Miller, he's one of those guys that's just, he's going to play until he feels like he can't play. And you see some guys, they just retire because they're done with the game. Like Von Miller's not going to do that. He's going to play until he feels like he cannot play. And I'm telling you, that guy thinks he's got a lot left in the tank right now. So I'll be cheering for him this year. And I hope he can stay healthy because some of his injuries have just been really unfortunate. But the way he's just overcome them and not because he's made enough money with his foundations and his chicken farm, green pasture. Um, he doesn't have to keep playing. He obviously is playing because he loves the game, and it's all about the rings, man. He just wants Super Bowl. He wants some more rings on his hand. He wants to get, I guess, at least 3. And like I said earlier, if Von Miller can stay healthy, you know, the Bills were the favorite 2 years ago. I'm not going to let one playoff loss just throw them out of the conversation. The Bills could win the Super Bowl this year. By the way, yesterday, the Bills broke ground for their new stadium opening in 2026. Sean McDermott was there. A lot of the staff and people were there. So that's pretty cool. The Bills Mafia, they love their Bills so much. And I think any team that is that passionate about um, their their team, even though the Bills have gone through like 2 decades of bad, football, let's just say it, from 1998 or whatever it was to like 2018 before Josh Allen came over. I mean, it's just been bad football. Yeah, they made it to the playoffs with like Nathan Peterman had to come in, but for the most part, the Bills have just not been good. So it looks like they really turned a chapter here. They got Josh Allen, they got a team, Stephon Diggs, they get a new stadium. Only thing they're missing is a ring. And I think Von Miller will, well, if he can stay healthy, he can be the piece that, just like he did it for the Rams, he can do it for the Bills. So excited to watch another year of Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals. Um, Bills fans are legit, even going as far as to shovel the players' cars out after a blizzard. That story was crazy last year. Yeah, and it was so much fun. I think that was during Thanksgiving. Because I remember they couldn't even fly home after Thanksgiving because the airport was shut down. And then it was even crazier was that they weren't playing. Um, Gosh, hold on. I want to say this the right way. They were playing Detroit because it was Thanksgiving, but the next week they had to play another team, but that team couldn't host because of something that was wrong with their stadium. So they put the game in Detroit. So the Bills flew to Detroit, flew back, and then flew back to Detroit the next week. And I was like, wow, if they would have known they were staying, they probably wouldn't have even flown home, even though it's like a 3-hour flight or like a 2-hour flight, whatever it is. Let me see. Because I remember I was kind of calling that game play by play with you guys. I think it was a 2-hour, 45-minute flight. 1 hour, 5 minutes. So, for some reason, my whole life, I thought Buffalo to Detroit was a lot farther than an hour long flight. That is pretty close. I mean, it's amazing how bad I am with geography when I really think about it. I put a U.S. map up the other day when the states all blanked out, and I got like 46 of them right, and I'm pretty embarrassed to say that. I struggle with the Northeast. Obviously I know Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Like I just Connecticut. I struggle with there's so little, and if you're not from that area, it's just I can't be the only one. And then I mistakenly screwed up Missouri and Kansas. I flipped them. but I did better than some people I know that I live with that I won't say her name. So yeah, I'm excited for this year because my goal is I'm going to go to the Broncos away games. I'm going to go to Buffalo, Miami, Kansas City. Um, I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to go to the away games and I'm going to rank um, the best away game experience. And I'm going to do all the cliche things. If I go to Philly, I'm going to get a Philly cheesesteak. If I go somewhere and they're like, you got to try the voodoo fries or whatever it is, like I'm going to get the fill in the blank team experience. I'm going to take picture next to their statues because every stadium, what's cool, and I know I've been following Tom Grassi as he goes, for his 30 for 30 going state to state. And even though I haven't been able to watch all of them, the one thing that I think me and him have in common is a true appreciation for the history of the game. Because some people may ask, like, why would you want to go to Buffalo to go to a game? You're not a Buffalo fan. And I think maybe they just don't love the game that much. But to think the way I talked to you guys about Lambeau Field, how when you walk up to that stadium, you're a part of such rich history, Vince Lombardi, and you just think like this is where they walked, this is where they pissed, this is where they ate, this is where they, this is where they existed. I mean, just that. I mean, I learned that when I was traveling the world, in Italy and going to national monuments and stuff like that. It's just there's something special about being in a place that has history. And although I've never really been deep into history, I'm not a history nerd. Like, oh, this is where King Arthur. It's just never been me. It is me when it comes to football. That is what I'm passionate about. So it's not that I don't like history. I just, I'm more passionate about history when it has to do with the things that I'm passionate about. And for me, that's football. So I do want to go to all the stadiums that are out there and I do want to soak it up. But I'm not going to go unless they're playing the Broncos. So if it takes me 3 years to get all 32, it takes me all 3 years. But most likely it'll take 4 years to be exact. But I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to be tracking all of it, recording all of it. So I'm hoping that you guys will, enjoy that ride with me, and if you've always wanted to do something like that, then I hope you're, living vicariously through that experience because it is a blessing to even be in a situation where you can do something like that. The top free agents left, and this is the final segment. I'm going to say right off the bat, number 3 is DeAndre Hopkins. Number 1 and number 2 are gone. This is the way it was ranked from 1 to 50, and as teams get plucked, they have disappeared. So DeAndre Hopkins would be the best available. I don't like this format. Number 2, Yannick Njoku, edge rusher from the Indianapolis Colts. Sacks and QB hits sell, but his inability to stop the run is probably why he's likely to get headed to his 6th team in 4 years. Jadeveon Clowney is still available, and personally, I would love to see Denver make a move for Jadeveon Clowney. I know that it's just, it's just a name, but when I think about Randy Gregory, I have a lot of concerns about. I mean, we have a good amount of pass rush. We lost Draymond Jones though, and with Randy Gregory and Barrett Browning, and we still have Nick Bonito, but all these guys keep getting injuries. I'm thinking my logic is if we can get enough, good pass rushers when they're healthy, that they all won't have injuries at the same time. So if Benito gets hurt, we'll throw in, Myles Garrett. If Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, I wish Myles Garrett. We throw in Jadeveon Clowney. If he gets hurt, hopefully, Randy Gregory's back from his tweaked ankle or whatever the case may be. So I just think depth is really important when you're having some problems staying healthy at a specific position. Marcus Peters is still, I skipped Dalton Reisner because I know that I'm probably the only one that knows who that is, but that's an offensive guard from Kansas. He's a guy I've met. He's a great person, but he just hasn't performed well enough for Denver to offer him that contract. We'll see if nobody, calls that maybe Denver, he takes a team-friendly deal just to stay home. But I think based on what his wife has been tweeting or what do you call it? Not Snapchatting, TikToking. I can tell that he's venting to her and she's not doing a great job of concealing his frustrations. So I don't know, when you're bitter towards an organization, it may not be great, but if they can sit down man to man and come to an agreement, it's a guy I would love to have back on the team for the right price. Marcus Peters, cornerback, he's 30, but he's also coming back from an ACL, but he still looked like a starter when we saw him last year. Melvin Ingram, Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is Teddy Two Gloves. He's Teddy Roosevelt. He's a good quarterback, but he's not. What's crazy when you think about who was the best quarterback Denver had from Peyton Manning retiring in 2015 until we got Russell Wilson? Well, even until Russell Wilson last year, let's be honest, it was Teddy Bridgewater. Almost a decade of quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater was the best quarterback we had. So, I mean, he wasn't great. We just had a lot of bad quarterbacks, but he can come in and be a reliable guy. I think if Teddy Bridgewater would have been healthy in that playoff game against the Bills, I think the Dolphins would have moved on to the next round. Instead, they relied on Skylar Humphrey and ended up only losing by 3, I believe. So Teddy Bridgewater is going to get a deal somewhere, but it's probably going to unfortunately happen when somebody gets hurt during, the season, or somebody gets hurt during training camp and they're like, crap, maybe they have a backup and now they're moving the backup to the starter and now the starter needs a backup. Somebody calls Teddy Bridgewater, he'll be playing ball somewhere. Frank Clark, edge rusher, played a lot for the Chiefs. I'm just calling the Chiefs, because they don't pay anybody. Then you got Bryce Callahan. He's been a solid corner when he's healthy, but injuries have definitely threatened his career more than anything. He played for the Broncos, and he was good with us, but we let him go for injuries, and then he went to the enemy. What's with Denver cornerbacks going to the Chargers? I mean, we lost Chris Harris Jr. to the Chargers. Bryce Callahan went to the Chargers, but now he's looking for his next home. He's 31. I'm sure somebody will take a friendly deal to add him just for depth purposes. Justin Houston. Houston never really gets old. He's like the edge version of Calais Campbell. He's just always lingering around, signing one-year deals at a time. But he's not that far from having a case to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday. And I do think he's just looking to put together a couple more years of solid football to get himself, in the conversation completely without there being a question. So this is where we're living right now. This is what we got left. We are getting pretty close here. We're less than 100 days away from football. I was going to tell you guys that on, let's see, that was Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, I believe, or Tuesday. It was last week, Tuesday. I was going to shoot a special episode called 100 Days Till Kickoff, but I wasn't able to get it done. And then I forgot to tell you when I was on here on Thursday. So I'll tell you now, we are very close to football. How close exactly? Let's see. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70, 77, 84. 91, 98, 99, 100, 101, 101, 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94 days away from NFL football. And I'm excited. This is going to be a fun year. We got Kansas City, Detroit going at it right away. Just a reminder for some of the teams that we do have that follow this podcast. The Jaguars are going to be playing the Colts week 1. So Jinja's going to have, he's going to have his hands full week 1. But, the Jaguars are on the road. So the Colts are at home. If you're going to beat the Jaguars, do it early and do it at home. I think this game ends up being closer than people expect. But I got the Jaguars. And then the Giants, lucky bastards, take the Sunday night football slot in a good old Cowboys Giants showdown. And then Denver, historical rivalry against the Raiders. That should be a really fun game. So we're getting close. We're bearing with it. Now, I wanted to check, has there been any news about who's going to be featured on Hard Knocks this year? If you guys never watched the HBO series of Hard Knocks, you guys have to do it. It is so much fun. I mean, I could watch it, like binge watch it, and then turn it all the way back on and rewatch it. It doesn't look like there's any update as of right now. So no update. I'll keep you guys honest with that. When I know something, you guys will know something. But besides that, man, thank you guys for still hanging out. I know the off season can be a drag sometimes, but things are going to start heating up. We're about to get into training camp. Hard Knocks is coming out, and then we're going to blink and preseason is going to start. And we're going to, just like Aaron Rodgers, we're going to run the table. All we need to do is REALX. That's all we need to do. If people are getting too crazy out there, just tell them, shh. Channeling my inner Aaron Rodgers. But that's all I got for you guys today. Bill, you're a real one. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being in here. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. Please help us continue to grow. You will not be disappointed. I am on the road right now. I'm in San Diego. I am not at home where I have a studio and great lighting and not a glitchy hand thing, but I wanted to do the virtual background just for the DeAndre Hopkins news. But it makes me feel like I'm hiding something, even though I'm not. So I'm going to do this. I am not hiding anything. There's no dead bodies behind me. But you guys are awesome. So thank you guys for being here. And I will see you guys next time. Until then, go Broncos. See you.